The conspiracy film series began with James Wan's Insidious in 2011, which was well received by critics and audiences and grossed $100.1 million worldwide on a budget of $1.50 million. The film Insidious, The Red Door, once again puts the Lambert family in the spotlight. Fans last met this family in Insidious, Chapter 2, where Josh and Dalton decide to suppress memories to prevent ethereal projection and return to the realm of the further. The new film takes place a decade after the previous installment. As Dalton goes to college and comes to terms with his ethereal projection ability and adulthood, the film picks up where Insidious 2 left off with Josh Lambert, Wilson, and his repressed memories of the further. Then suddenly, it is transported to the funeral of Josh's mother, Lorraine. While Dalton, Josh's eldest son, reads from the Bible at the funeral, an encounter with Carl, the man responsible for erasing Josh's memories, highlights the depth of Josh's amnesia. In this sad mood, Josh and Dalton try to rekindle their bond on a road trip to Dalton's new school. Their attempt at reconciliation, however, is derailed by an unresolved argument and a family feud linked to their harrowing past. At college, Dalton is surprised to find a female roommate named Chris, Danielle, due to a clerical error. The two become friends by accepting his quirks and avoidant behavior. Dalton's first unconscious journey takes place during art class practice, where he draws the infamous Red Door, leading him and his father into the supernatural realm of the further, conspiracy film, made by Patrick Wilson. It carries an element that is part of a dark legacy. Not only because the film returns to the theme of the Lambert family, but the main heroes of the first and second parts of this series are also present. Meanwhile, as it becomes clear that it's more than just a horror experience. The story focuses on the idea of a cursed blood transfusion. The director, who started his career behind the camera, makes it clear in the first scenes of the film that what will happen will be related to more than one house. It covers at least one specific area or space. In this episode, the beyond has become a stubborn enemy, and the gap between the worlds of the living and the dead is not so obvious. A conspiracy movie, geographical distance, years that have passed, or anything that shows the limits of reality are not important. What is relevant is the horror displayed in new dimensions. In the fifth episode, this idea is present more than ever. The movie Insidious, Red Door by Patrick Wilson recreates the world created by James Wan without depth or mystery. The movie is a combination of tension and classic horror codes that do not impress the audience much. Despite the director's efforts to create an atmosphere similar to the previous episodes, they have not been very successful. Due to the lack of expertise and skills, the actor's first attempt was not successful. In the end, the film ends as expected, although it does not meet the expectations of the series' originality. In the first minutes, trying to remember the essential points of the created world is fruitless. This makes it clear that the new narrative relies almost entirely on what James Wan has created for himself. A point that will become more visible as the film progresses in its plot. In fact, the story of Insidious, Red Door relies so much on the story of its previous episodes that you will not understand anything about the story without them. These points are closed doors opening, normal sounds, and the camera playing in the dark are all seen in this episode as well. A good part of the images refer directly to the epic. Signs of another world soaked in blood, creatures with huge, monstrous eyes. It all looks very familiar. More than the obvious. It aims to repeatedly remind us that what is hidden in the Lamberts' lives is a core of darkness that is impossible to avoid. This problem is made more evident by the constant reference to the devil who brought down the Lamberts. Although a decade has passed since their last encounter and life has moved on in the meantime, a world of mystery haunts them. Patrick Wilson does not add any innovation to the film, so the film bears an obvious resemblance to its predecessor. In fact, the plot uses the same plot tricks. In the 2013 feature film, moving into Josh's mother's house was the trigger for a mystery that afflicted its protagonists. The screenplay tries to emphasize the concept of a scary bond they can't avoid, but the film is inconsistent in explaining it. There are few scenes that show the love, understanding, or at least the heavy legacy that everyone carries with them. Something essential to delve into the horror scenario, just as the feature film suggests. In the end, when the different parts of the film have to be put together to get the final composition, the filmmaker cannot create a visual way to present this supernatural effect. This film reveals its weakness in the narration of a not-so-complicated but emotional story. Between the two, the film is changing and falling apart, and it ends up being a mediocre horror film. The most serious problem with Insidious, Red Door is that it is a sequel to a well-known series with strong characters.